Hello and welcome to the next episode of Making Mannequin Heads into Planters. Ba, ba, ba. Hi, how you doing? So, like, subscribe, do all those things, share, tell your friends, help me pay for a hot tub. Yeah, I haven't got that many people yet. Maybe someday. We'll see. But that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it more as an exploration of fun and to give somebody or some people's some sort of reference for how to use different mediums and how to get out of your comfort zone, maybe for making stuff in your own way and maybe being inspired to have some fun in the arts and open your mind to opportunities, or no, not about opportunities, possibilities of using things in ways that other people wouldn't think of. How's that? I like that. So we were working on last we knew I used up the rest of the SculptCrete. Dun, 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 dun. New bag of SculptCrete. Works like clay, dries like cement, hardens like concrete, whatever it is. So let's do that again. SculptCrete, SculptCrete. There we go. Works like clay, hardens like cement, SculptCrete. There it is. There's my ad for the day. Someday they won't pay me. So I'm going to mix up some SculptCrete. We were working on this lovely beauty, and I need to finish applying. I actually have an idea of what I'm going to do for the neck that I think is really going to be cool. We'll see how much time we have. If I can get the neck done to, I think that'll take all of our time for today. If not, then I will move on to exaggerating or more emphasizing the facial features that I was thinking about that I might want to do, and then it's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to it. We'll find out if we like it together. So, putting on the gloves. While I do so, I hope you are doing well and that your day, ooh, that would be inside out. That was gross. Other hand, oh, actually I can, oh, I never thought of it. You can put it on either way. They're ambidextrous, as long as you got a thumb. So, hope you're doing well. Hope your day has been okay. And if not, you can always choose to twist that dial and go in a different direction. Pivot, pivot, pivot. Always an opportunity to pivot. No matter how much you think you're underwater or that you're stuck, we have to remind ourselves we can make the opportunities to pivot. You can choose to try to pivot. And some days you just want to go back to bed. But for me, I've always, my whole thing is I'm very driven, obviously. I do lots of things. People are always like, oh my God, you're exhausting. Well, yeah, I kind of am. But I like to do lots of things because I have a lot of creative thoughts, feelings, whatevers that I like to express, and it makes me feel better. I get energized by doing things like this. I've worked a full day and then did this and did that. And, like today I took down the light fixture and did all this other stuff, getting ready for construction on the kitchen. But, it's kind of like, and then I want to come down here and what I want to do is I want to re-energize, invigorate myself. And what do? I either go and I practice, I sit at my keyboard and I sing my butt off, or I teach voice, or I do a session with a client, or I come down and I do some art, or I paint, or I sculpt, or I whatever, throw clay. And all of those things, when I'm done, I'm actually more energized than when I started, which is, pretty ideal, right? I'm just looking up because I look oddly tan today. Maybe it's just my screen. And as you can tell, it gets me like all excited and jazzed, as I'm sure you've experienced if you've seen any of the other videos in this series. I get very excited at times. So let's get going. Get my surface all cleaned off. I vacuumed it, and I don't need it spick and span, but I do want it not dirty. I think that's a good goal, right? Just to have it not dirty. All right, so I'm gonna go 3 to 1, and I'm gonna go with a significant amount today because, oh, there's one of those bugs on the wall. Holy crap. Oh, God, they are just like, oh, kind of creep me out. 3 to 1. 3 dry to 1 wet. Make a consistent pull on each one. There we go. I'm going above the line. You see how far up I've gone? I want to do that for each one consistently so that my water is an easy measure. And as I've mentioned in the past, I do want to make sure that my water measure is low. That's pretty good, right? Yep. On the low end, because I do want it to be wet, but not too wet. So in order to do that, as I've mentioned, you can always add water, but you can't take away water once you put it in there. Oh no, this Ziploc, the Ziploc closure, or whatever you want to call it, is not a good one on this bag. Oh, this is a bummer. I don't want it being exposed to air, to moisture in the air. I may have to rethink how this is going to seal. Oh no, it did. It just sealed. It's just got crap in the Ziploc part. You do want to seal this back because, like I mentioned, it is a chemical reaction, right? It's a chemical reaction with water. Water is the catalyst, or water is maybe not the catalyst, but it is the thing that gets it going. Not technically the catalyst, maybe. I don't know. I am not a chemist. But I will tell you that when it hits water, it creates, motivates it to move, to start the chemical reaction. So when it does that, you got to be careful that you are not, I've got a full bottle of water here. This is going to be easier for me to just grab water out of. That you don't leave it open, because if you leave it open, all the moisture in the air, especially if you're talking like summer or anything like that, or if you've got a humidifier in your house or in your studio, wherever you happen to be working, all that moisture is going to be just sucked up by this, and it's going to become more and more solid. It happens with concrete all the time, bags of concrete that, poured it in, pouring it in piece, section by section, so that I can incorporate it into the powder. But yeah, so you got to make sure that you take care of your materials. This stuff is not cheap. It's about 25 bucks a bag for 5 pounds. It's $5 a pound. I can do math. Look at me. But so you just really want to make sure that it's not, leave the, oh crap, I left the bag open and now I just spent $25 and got, 2 ounces of use out of it. I did find another brand of this stuff. I don't remember what it's called. That was available. Put the rest of my water in and get it mixing. I'm doing it gently so I don't create a lot of dust, because I don't need a lot of dust going on. I'm in the basement and I'm not wearing a mask. So I am wearing gloves, but not a mask. I know. But anyway, so moving on from that subject, right? Here we go. It's starting to come together. Get that water right in there. Get into my corners. And I'm going to turn my container. If you have a round container, it's probably better. Through experience of doing this now, I probably would use a round container. This happened to be, just so you know what kind of container I use, I love to reuse, recycle. So these were hot dipped galvanized nails that I used for roofing, or this was actually just for the walls of the shed that we built at the old house. So I have all the stuff for the shed for the new house. Just got to actually build it in the spring for this house, the new house. So here we go. This is coming together. Let's get this all smushed together. The clock starts ticking as soon as the water hits the powder. Clock is for 30 to 45 minutes workable, but it really, I've found that I have an hour. 45 minutes, it starts to get a little bit grainy again, but it's still, for what we're doing, still definitely an hour. to be able to use it. Now, is this going to be incorporated enough? This is a large batch of this stuff for this container. I did get enough together because I have an idea what I want to do, and I want to be able to build up significantly from the base as well as cover. So let's get this going. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more water. I can take that from my hidden bucket on the floor, which is running out of water. Thus I took it from my sprayer. There we go. I'm going to add a little bit more water. Incorporate this into it. It'll just a little teeny bit each time, like literally a tablespoon each time is plenty. There we go. That's what I want. It's going to loosen it up. And let me get all of my mixture together. So, how you been? It's exciting to watch, right? Me mixing concrete. SculptCrete. I know you're hearing the motto in your head now, aren't you? I need to put a jingle together for it. I wonder if it has one. So this is great. This is what I need. I'm going to start applying it because it's actually wetter right now, and I want it to be a little bit drier, a little bit more set up. Not drier, but set up. A little firmer is really the word I want. Get it squished between my fingers. Squish, squish. That actually seems to be a nice way to get it to really incorporate the water very well. There. All right. So I've got this stand here just to see if this will actually work on this. So I did find the cover that came out of one of the bases of one of the other ones, and I was wondering if this would fit better. Nope, it's sort of an in-between. Oh, good Lord. Well, I tried. So I'm just wondering, I don't think this is going to work. Nope, that is not going to work. So I'm going to get this quickly out of the way. Don't mind me. Which way? Lefty-loosey, lefty-loosey, lefty-loosey. But is that righty-tighty when it's reversed? Good golly. There it is, lefty-loosey. But upside down it makes it righty-loosey. Very weird. Sort of mind bend. So I'm going to start applying this at the base here. You saw me, I sprayed the dry concrete that's already on here so that I've got sort of more of a semi-wet, damp surface that I can stick this to blend it to the section that I've already done. It also wets the foam a little bit so that it slides on the foam, doesn't catch quite as much, but also creates sort of a suction to keep it onto the foam a little bit better, I find. When I don't use it, it does make a little bit of a difference. I mean, it's like really very little. So if you don't do it, don't freak out. Like the last episode, I forgot to. And it's kind of like, oh, that made a little bit of difference, but barely any, especially if I'm just applying big old globs of under layer of SculptCrete to the base and to the form itself. So I do want to make sure as I'm going through that I don't push through to the foam itself underneath, because then I'm going to have very weak parts when I'm building. And when it's outside, I am concerned that if it's not fully covered by SculptCrete, that weathering may be weird, and that would create a very, very weak spot, weak area in the SculptCrete that would weather very differently and not stand up to the weather outside. So I've been telling you last few episodes that I'm thinking about taking the heads that I've finished, bringing them in and storing them inside, using them as planters inside here in the basement, in the office, not office, but the studio areas. And I am going, excuse me, I am going to, there we go, do that. Coming up, I want to do it before everything freezes so I don't lose my plants. It's 49 degrees out today. It's been in the 40s when I wake up. It's very cold riding a motorcycle, and when it's in the 40s, I think I'm going to cut it off for the motorcycle. When it actually, I wake up and it's in the 30s, and I'm going to be like, okay, time to change the oil, fill it up, treat the gas, and put it on in the garage, in the back part of the garage, for storage for the season. I do have a class, motorcycle class, in the end, in a couple weeks, at the very end of the month, which is going to be very cold. It's literally the weekend prior to Halloween. So that'll be interestingly weird to do a driving class at that point, but whatever. Getting it done this year instead of waiting till next year. The hoops that you have to go through in Connecticut, I'm in the Hartford area, I'm in West Hartford, Connecticut, and let me tell you, this class that you have to take, it's just crazy. 3 full days, well, 2.5 really, full days, or 2.5 days of class. It's kind of very weird. You never had to do that in the Midwest. But I mean, that may be different now. I don't know. So we're continuing to put it on. There we go. There we go. It's going on beautifully. It's actually really nice consistency. And as you can tell, I'm using my whole hand because I get better coverage and more even application of it as I go with my entire hand. Like, not using the palm as much, but from like mid palm here down, seems to splooge it on, squidge it, squeeze it, smear it. There we go. Not really smearing it, more tamping it onto the base, while not putting ridges, as many ridges in it. Not that it really matters for ridges, because where is it going out? Going to be outside. That's right. It's our mantra to remind ourselves, for me to remind myself that not to get too OCD with it. Don't get too obsessive over it, Patrick. So this is fun. I like this stuff. It feels really, really, really nice. So my idea, so I'm going to tell you my idea now for how I'm going to, or what I'm going to do on this. I was looking at the form as I was cleaning up, and I came down for some other stuff to get some stuff from this area, and there we go. And I was looking at it going, you know, it just seems like what would be neat is if it looked like the head was coming up as a spiral, because, you know, it's got this beautiful long neck on it. And my thoughts were also, how much does it need to actually look like a face? Do I need to do these as faces? No, is the answer. I don't need to do them as faces. Do I want to keep them looking like they are faces? Well, not necessarily, but if I kind of like the idea of keeping them looking like heads, and heads tend to have faces, or they intentionally don't have faces. They're sort of blanks. So with that in mind, I need to free my brain from the restriction of every head has a face, or this is the expectation of what this is going to look like, because I'm not working in any strictures of our requirements of you are making this, and this is how this is supposed to be. There's no supposed to be's when you're making mannequin heads into planters. I mean, you can have, you know, clear ideas of what you want to do, but really, you know, hello, with most things, you know, in art, it's kind of like those people who are like, well, it doesn't look like blah, 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 or it doesn't fit these standards or these parameters. I say bullshit to you. I call bullshit, as I say, because the people who are the most famous artists, think of an Andy Warhol, did the most simple things, but in a new and wacky way. And that's why they're considered to be artists, right? Thank you. Yes, there are other artists that are, contemporary artists, I mean. But when classical artists were doing things, they were doing subtle, like, crazy stuff, the way that they were doing it, the mediums that they were using, the approaches, the ways that they were, exploring the visual aspects, like painters, if you think of that. How to portray the light on a field, or how to paint the light on a field. And they were coming up with new and wacky ways, which were not traditional, which were or taking from tradition and sort of expanding that or developing it in a new way. And that's why they were famous. That's why they were, considered masters, because not only had they mastered the technique, but they created their own techniques. And that was a creative part of it. Their own techniques, their own approaches, their own version of art. So if you're just replicating somebody else, so I tell people this all the time in voice lessons, right? They come to me and they're like, I just want to sing with the radio. And I'm like, hee, love it. That's fabulous. That's a great goal. I want to be able to sing in tune at karaoke, or to sing along with the TV when I watch, The Voice or something like that, and not feel embarrassed. Or I want to be able to sing along on Happy Birthday and not be cringeworthy doing so, and my family go, oh my gosh, you sound so good. All of those things. Or I want to find my unique, beautiful voice that I used to sing when I was in high school and I haven't sung because blah, 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 whatever. And I want to continue singing. And I tell them, so this is the deal. We're going to find a song. You're going to come to me with a song, or we're going to explore a song together that you're going to pick and that you're going to want to sing, right? So I don't just assign random repertoire unless they're my younger students. And then I'm like, you need an Italian song. Here's some Italian songs. So what I do is I present them with a number of Italian songs. And because Italian is a good language to learn in, you don't have all these hang-ups if you don't speak it, on what the language is supposed to sound like. So it's easier to do it in a foreign language, blah, 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 blah. That's my philosophy, and it proves to be true. Boom. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a swirl. Haha, I finally told you. So anyway, so I tell them, I say, so when I say unique voice, you can sing an Elvis song any way that you want. Elvis made it famous, right? Elvis probably didn't write it. Some of it, a lot of his songs. Ooh, you know what I didn't do? And this is the reason it's not sticking well. I did not spray. There we go. Imagine that. I was yakking and not spraying. There we go. We want to get this damp so it'll just stick right to it instead of the under part just taking away the moisture. There we go. So my whole thing is, all right, so let's learn this song together. Let's learn what your version of it is. Not only with your unique voice, but your unique interpretation of that song. So you got to own it for people to want to listen to it. So if they want to listen to Elvis singing a song, they can either listen to an Elvis impersonator trying to sound exactly like Elvis and look like Elvis, which is, hallelujah, good for you. That's freaking hard to do because you are not Elvis and you never will be Elvis. Or they're going to want to hear Elvis's song interpreted in your way in an honest to goodness, relatable version of it. And people, really don't like, I'll use Larry as an example. He's a good example. Journey is like, one of our favorite groups, right? And Lee loves it. I grew up listening to it. Larry absolutely loves it. But they've had multiple lead singers. And Larry's just like, if it's not the exact, right off the album, I don't like it. And I'm like, okay, but do you give it time to like it or not like it? And so he went back and he listened. He was like, oh, I don't know. That's a valid question. I don't know if I actually don't like it just because it's not the original, or if I don't like it because I actually don't like it. And both answers are pretty valid. But you should give it a chance to, maybe be a different version of the song, and you can have a preference of the version. I'm that way with Queen. I'm obsessed with Queen. with the rock group Queen. And if it's not Freddie Mercury singing it, I'm like, it's not Freddie Mercury. Blah. But anyway, so what I do with my students is I say, so I can teach you how to be an impersonator if you want to be an impersonator. However, when you learn a song, my main goal, if you're not wanting to be an impersonator, I've taught a few impersonators, one being an Elvis impersonator, incredibly enough, who is trying to find his own voice, and young guy. But if you don't want to be an impersonator, because you will never be that person, if you want to sing an Adele song, then figure out how your body, your voice, your psyche, your soul sings that song that happens to be sung by Adele. Do you like the song? Are you attracted to the song because Adele sings it? Because it's Adele's voice, whose voice is still spectacular even after her surgery. And she's a great musician, and she's just a really interesting person. And that's reason enough to love a song. But when you go to sing it, you're not going to be able to sing it exactly like Adele unless you're trying to be an Adele impersonator, right? You get my point? So how are you going to sing it then? Well, that's part of the journey. That's part of the exploration, is figuring out how you sing that song. What of that song speaks to you the most? How are you going to have a unique version of that song with your unique voice, body, psyche, the whole musicianship, the whole dealio? And that, to me, is much more exciting for my students most of the time. And for me, I do, like I said, I love impersonators. I think they're just the most incredible things. People who are able to do, incredible people who are able to do the most amazing things. And I respect that wholly, but you're not going to really probably come to me very often to be an impersonator. And most of my students, when I explain it that way, because they're like, well, that's not how he sings it. That's not how she sings it. I'm like, no, it's not. How are you going to sing it? That's going to be something that speaks more of you than of someone else. And then they go, oh, well, I don't know, because that's scary. Because, well, how do you figure that out? Who the hell knows, right? Well, I know. That's why you come to me. Is to find that unique interpretation, unique voice that you have in you. And the beauty of modern technology helps that a lot for me, because it doesn't matter where you are that we can have lessons, depending on your level of musicianship. But the cool part is, like, you can be at home and we can do most everything vocal-wise, learning pieces and stuff. Now, my piano sucks, so we're going to have to find, an accompaniment track or something for you to practice to, and I can teach you how to do that. But I'm going to teach you how, and I'm going to challenge you to figure out what your version of that song is. And then I have a feeling you're going to be very excited, scared, and nervous, because you're going to be like, well, who the hell am I to interpret somebody else's song? Well, so think about this. How many actual singers wrote their own songs? I mean, a lot, right? But if they're not a singer-songwriter and they're a singer, then there are a ton of songwriters out there who write songs for other people. So if you think of Barbra Streisand, who's, somebody wrote those songs that she sang. She didn't write them. She interpreted them. She owned them. She created them as her version of them, but it's somebody else's song still. And that still happens a lot today. What happens now also is that, like, a buddy of mine is a recording, he works in recording studios, and he's a producer. So what happens now with a lot of singers is that they come up with a riff. So that's like, a riff is like a very short motif. It's a short melodic line, brief melodic line. And then the producer sorry, this is right in the way. Producer comes up with all the rest of it. And in this case, Rob Rebeck, he comes up with the beats. He comes up with the all the rhythm sections for it. He comes up with the backups. He comes up with all of this stuff. And he works with some rappers and some R&B artists. And so, and then he sets it all up together and he mixes it all together. And the R&B artist who's got his name on it, it's interesting because very little of their work is actually them. Most of the work, they're the face, they're the, the front person, if you will, like, the front man on a band or the front girl on a band, front gal, woman on a band. They're the face of it, they're the performer of it, the public performer, but the person who's really done the most musical work on it, which has been proven over and over again by rappers who can't sing and fancy themselves as singers and then get out there and embarrass the hell out of themselves. There's a couple that you might think of right off the top of your head. One being someone who actually tried to sing Bohemian Rhapsody and showed that he really doesn't have any kind of a singing voice and can't carry a tune in a bucket. But his ego made him think that he could do it live, and it was just frightening and horrible and embarrassing. But anyway, so that producer is the one who really does the musical legwork, and the performer does a fabulous job in presenting it publicly and creating, sort of taking it to the next level of being something that you want to follow, that you want to watch, that in his or her performances, and the stylizing of it and stuff like that, and the physical side of it, kind of like an actor. It's like when you think of it sort of in the idea of theater generally, and you think of a musician who's presenting other people's works, which is most singers who are presenting other people's works. And don't get me wrong, there are tons of singer-songwriters who are amazing. Don't get me wrong, but you think of it sort of in the true sense of theater, then those performers are the ones who are making those songs famous and really making them want to be heard, because the interpretation of song is an incredibly challenging thing, exciting thing, but it also takes not only talent. There's all this debate about what is talent. Well, talent's hard work, but there is in the world. You got to be born with certain things. You got to be born with pipes. You got also known as the voice. You've got to be able to have sort of an ear to be able to hear the differences. There are people who just don't. Their brains don't work that way. They don't interpret or understand sound the same way, that is just how it is. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just they're different. You could say that the people who do hear things differently may be wrong. Who knows? It's, it is what it is. But anyway, so those performers are the ones who are bringing something else to the songwriter's songs. So one great example is Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan. Everything I sing, I can make sound like Bob Dylan. And I know I've talked about this before. There we go. I've got a spiral going. Now, right now it looks like something snaking up the neck and into the head. But what I want it to do is I want it not to look like something snaking up, but I want it to actually look like part of the body itself. So I'm going to do another one of these. It's going to parallel it. And I'm thinking I'm going to do 3 of them. And how do I know exactly? And they're all going to go the same direction. They're going to be sort of a corkscrew is what my thought was originally with this. So I'm going to take a batch of this and I'm going to start it here. And we're going to just start working our way right up from the base. Anyway, so I just get excited about all that stuff. So as an artist, let's translate that to art. So I'm doing something completely uniquely different, right? Like you've never seen this before. Nobody has ever made a mannequin head into a planter before. Yeah, let's sit with that for a little bit. That's a claim that I cannot make. Ooh, that was my dad's laugh. That's so funny. My dad's My dad's laugh just came out of my mouth. 100%, right, Terry? So I'm not doing something wholly unique. Other people have had this idea. Other people have actually done this before. Have they done it the way that I'm doing it? No, they haven't. Have they used SculptCrete to do this before? Yes, they have. Has anybody ever made exactly the same thing that I'm making now? No, they have not. So that's where the concept of art comes in. That I'm doing something that, because I looked it up, of course, I was just like, oh, here's an idea. I'm so unique. Nobody's ever thought of this. And I look it up on YouTube and I'm like, oh, well, other people have done it. So I looked at other people as for inspiration. So this is what I do with my voice students. This is what I recommend with artists as well. And any good art teacher, or all my good art teachers at least, had me do this. All my good music teachers had me do this as well. When you listen to a piece of music, or when you look at other people's art, are you going to replicate that art? Are you going to be an impersonator? Or are you going to use it to learn techniques, to learn approaches, to learn in the musical side interpretation of song? What does this person do? Do you like this? Do you not like this? Do you like that? When I put this on, does this work for you? You're building a toolbox. If you have I like using the tool analogy just because I relate very well to tools. I enjoy tools, literally like tools, and be they sculpting tools or anything like that. I love things that help you create other things or put things together or break them down. So how are you mentally watching this? For example, the video you're watching right now. What are you getting out of it? Is it just me blathering on constantly? I know I blather. It's a funny word to use for when referring to myself talking the entire time. But philosophizing, if you will. But is that what you're getting out of it? If it is, hallelujah, fabulous. If you're being inspired by what I'm doing to take it to a different level, interpret it in a wholly different way or a partially different way, to do exactly what I'm doing, whatever, that's why I'm doing this, is to inspire you to try different things, right? So when I listen to, let's go back to a musical piece, when I listen to a very well-known vocal artist singing a song, no matter what style I'm working, I can be in country music, I can be in pop, I can be in whatever, I can be in gospel. I adore singing gospel. I used to sing a lot of it, and I sing it very well for some reason. I just really relate to it really well. Or, if I'm singing whatever, and I want to listen to other people's interpretations of it. If I'm singing classical opera, I listen to other artists, but not until I've actually learned the song myself without outside influence. Because I don't want to impersonate. This is just my approach. I'm not there to impersonate somebody else's interpretation of it or their version of it. But I'm going to learn, like, oh, I like that it slows down there. I like, when I taught it to myself, I sit there and I go, okay, so this is my take on this song just from the page. I know the page is just a framework in a lot of cases. In classical music, it's much more of a structured framework. But in musical theater, for example, you've got certain approaches that you take. That's a musical theater approach to a song, that you see something and you go, oh yeah, that's sung like this because that's how everybody does it. And it's kind of expected, right? It's kind of the sound that they're looking for when looking at a song. But, I look at songs from the 30s and 40s and I'm like, I've heard maybe these songs before, but what I like to do is I like to not listen to anybody else's version of it. And then I want to teach it to myself as it's written on the page so that I can then think about where I like to stretch, where I like to sing alternate notes even, where I like to slow down, speed up, blah, 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 all these other things, how to interpret song. And as I'm doing that, I then go to recordings. And I go, well, who's the famous person? I Google it or whatever and go, who was the famous person who sang this? And then I listen to the recording. And or I go back to the recording if it was somebody who inspired me, that I listened to them singing, I'm like, oh my God, I love this song so much. And then go away from that recording, that person's version of it, and I try to find my own version of it. So now with art, how do you do that, right? So you get on Pinterest, you get on Instagram, you get on whatever else might be out there at the time that you are watching this or listening to this, and you get on Etsy. I mean, there's a ton of things that you can get on that that you look at. Pick books, like books that are about certain styles, certain eras. There's a reason that there's, you know, art education, is because then you can look at it and go, ooh, that speaks to me. Ooh, that does not speak to me. And you can understand sort of how things develop. But not only that, but a lot of the motivation that your teachers don't tell you, or that your teachers didn't tell you, was that really it was so that you could find your entree or your understanding level in art. So what speaks to you? And if you always wanted to do something similar to that, then that's what you should pursue, I think. And that's what you should, you know, aspire to. You know, you're not going to be Picasso. Nobody is Picasso. Anybody can pretend to be Picasso. But again, why would you do something just like Picasso did? Because then it's just you know, it's what Picasso did. He already did it. He'll do it better than you every time. A computer probably would be able to generate a Picasso that Picasso didn't do pretty perfectly. Is that what you want to do? Okay, here's an ear. So I am going to emphasize the ear. Boop, 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 boop. It's kind of like an apostrophe. And I'm going to build it out a little bit so that I can make sure to work around it with my spiral. There we go. Work the earlobe. Goes way up and out. It goes back and in. There we go. And then it comes down in the little earlobe. Diddly-dee. There's the earlobe. So I'm working on this so you can see what I'm doing. Very rough ear. I can build it up, I can build it down, I can do whatever I want, but I just want it to be there so it's present, so that I know to work around it. I can go in, I can go out, I can do whatever I want, or I can get rid of it later. With SculptCrete, it's a lot more difficult to do, but whatever. So there's that. There we go. Yeah, so that is what I encourage you to do, is always look for inspiration, always be fearless in your research, searching, whatever, but keep in mind why you're doing it, or try to sort of encourage yourself to take what you can. Maybe I'm going to circle this down and around the ear, because I kind of like that idea. Maybe it becomes the ear. Ooh, it just became the ear. That's cool. Well, that just happened and kind of became something that I didn't expect. Neat. I like that. Apparently, when I work in this stuff, I like the ridges that it makes. Because I can't sculpt it back, it's the building up. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Smooth that down. I'll let that start to dry, and then I'll work a little bit more. But I like it. Remember, it's going to be outside, so the ear is actually pretty fun. Doesn't really come down. There it is. There, fun. He's even got a little earlobe, or she. And my spiral works right into it. Boom, there it is. Very nice. All right, so I'm going to come back here. I'm going to smooth this out a little bit more. So what are your thoughts on that whole thing about how to interpret, how to be inspired? It's like, where do you find all that? All right, so I want to do one more of these spirals. They seem to be having a mind of their own, certainly. Two of them actually is pretty dang good. But I think I'm going to do one more coming from here that may join, let's join one of the spirals. Let's join a spiral from under here. I'm going to start actually from further back than I was really originally going to do. I was going to start it from the front, but let's go back here. Roll, Bye. Oh my God, this video is super long. I may have to split this video. Good Lord. I gotta get so into this. All right, I'm splitting this video. So I'm gonna say goodbye. Continue working, and I will pick it right up the next episode right where I'm at right now. This is the longest episode I've done, and I apologize that it's gotten so long. But I'm going to continue working and pick it up in the next episode, and I will see you soon. Put that love out in the world, and there's not enough love in the world. Like, subscribe, share it to your friends, and have a blast. Treat yourself well. Be nice to yourself. We're very hard on ourselves. I know I say this every time, and it's because I truly believe it. And I think we all need to hear it to give ourselves permission to be a little bit easier on ourselves and to be a lot easier on other people. All right? So have a wonderful day, and I will see you in just a few minutes in the next episode. Bye.